Discovered your passion for storytelling later in life, what was the moment you knew you wanted to pursue a career in acting, and how difficult slash challenging was that decision to make that pivot?
Oh, yeah. Usually I don't have clear-cut specific answers to questions like these, but on this one I actually do. The moment I decided to become an actor, like where I really decided to actually pursue it, I had booked a PC Richards commercial, which is this regional chain in the Northeast for those who don't know. And it was a non-union shoot. It was in the middle of the night. We were renting out the store because you can't shoot while the store is open during daytime hours. And I remember I was under these really hot, uncomfortable lights, and I was waiting for my turn to go in front of the camera and do some stuff. And my castmates and I had become friends really quickly, and we were just, just shooting the shit and just hanging out and quoting our favorite funny movies. And I remember being just so happy, and I really came alive in that whole setting, like being with some creatives. And granted, it's a commercial, and you're there to do this particular job. But I remember finally feeling like I belonged somewhere especially in a workplace setting like that. And I had already been auditioning for commercials and whatever I could get my hands on at the time leading up to that. And this was 2 weeks before college graduation. And I remember it was in the middle of the Great Recession and the job market was awful. And I realized, oh no, I could potentially be pursuing a path that I don't really want to do. And there was a time when I thought I was going to pursue like public relations because that's what I majored in. But in that moment, being on that set, it was when that moment clicked. I had that aha moment of like, oh, this is what I want to do. And so I had to tell my parents very soon after that, like 2 weeks before graduation, that, hey, thank you for paying for school. I don't want to do that. And that was a little terrifying. But I'm alive to tell the tale.
Yeah, you moved to LA in 2014 to pursue a career in the arts, and you worked a lot of different jobs to make ends meet. Having experienced all the success that you have now, what's one thing you would tell your 2014 self?
Um, it's okay to have a chip on your shoulder once in a while, but just know that
Mm.
it's temporary, and that just try to enjoy the process as much as you can. Um, I think sometimes we take struggle and hardship and obstacles as a sign of, oh no, I'm either failing or maybe I'm not on the right path, or you start to question if you're on the right path. And I think the struggle is meant to strengthen your wings. It's meant to teach you things, and you have to look at obstacles, whether it's at the fault of your own doing or whether it's just because what you're pursuing is just difficult, objectively difficult. Just keep looking for opportunities to ask yourself, what is my lesson here? What can I learn from this? Yeah, I think I would tell myself, hey, it's okay. You're doing fine.
Great answer. When you look at your career as a whole, who or what's had the biggest influence, either personally or professionally?
Ooh, a lot of people, a lot. Anybody, especially in this line of work, who tells you that they did it by themselves is either lying to you or ungrateful or oblivious. Um, Probably my mom. She was the first person who I told, or maybe the second person I told I wanted, like as far as within my family, I had to tell my parents. So after that, shooting that commercial and deciding I want to be an actor, the time came, I had to tell mom and dad, right? I couldn't hide from them. And she believed in me right from the start. And it's almost like she kind of knew before I did that this is what I should be doing. Because everybody knew I was auditioning for commercials and pursuing acting work part-time outside of school. But she was really the first person to believe in me. And of course she's my mom. So of course she's going to say, I believe in you, which is great. Like I feel like as standard as that may sound for some people with great relationships with their moms, for other people it's like not everyone has that in their lives. So to have key people throughout your life and throughout your career give you this really crucial yes at a moment when you really need to hear it, it really goes a long way. So my mom's been there for me. Like, she's put money in my bank account when I was really poor and couldn't sign up for classes, and she knew that I was, like, she's like, don't tell anyone, but I put a little money for that casting director workshop. It's like, all right, I didn't ask, but thank you very much. Okay, yeah, I'm glad I didn't say no. And so, like, every little bit of learning, every little bit of being in a class setting, like, um, she was one of the people, of course, who, you know, presented those opportunities. And then, of course, you go on to meet all these great teachers along the way, all these great classmates and people who, help you, these coaches and then these friends who help you get off book for your auditions. Like, there's so much help and there's so much opportunity for connection and like working together, especially in this field. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say my mom.
You guys are doing commercials and local theater. What's that transition been like going out to the silver and small screen?
I remember there was a series of months that I really dove into the local LA theater scene, and um, it was fiscally really like a bad idea. Like, I was struggling financially, like, really hard, and to take more time off of work to like do plays. Like, I started in like May or June that year, and I plowed through 3 plays back to back to back all the way to the end of the year until the end of 2018. And even though it was financially a bad idea, it was artistically, it gave me so much experience and so much rich hands-on hours on the clock, really learning and playing around. And I had various roles. I was either like in the ensemble, or I was understudying for a lead role, or I was like a fight choreographer, and all that stuff. Looking back, it really just hours in the lab, like doing the thing, really doing the work. Like, it's such an investment in yourself. And it's not that I recommend that you like leave your job to do a theater that doesn't pay. What I'm saying is, hours in the lab, any chance you get to throw paint on the wall and see what you can get out of it, is priceless, so in a way, hindsight is easy for me now, where I can say, oh yeah, I don't regret it and I would do it again. I mean, it was a struggle for sure, but I would take it back. And then getting to do commercials, just being on set, seeing how things go and seeing who's moving what around, and kind of knowing the basic rules and the language of what it is to operate on a professional set. There are a lot of actors who are either really well trained or really not at all. And then they get to a set, and like, I've definitely heard this. Somebody was telling me this story recently. They knew of somebody who went to like some great program in New York City, and they get to set and they get their first big job, and then they say, hey, can you take your mark? And the actor said, what's a mark? And it's like, oh, that's rudimentary stuff. And I don't want to be the person who finds out things like that the hard way. And I'm still learning on my job now, which on Kung Fu, which is, every day I feel like I'm still learning something, even though I have a lot of experience leading up to it, but also there's so much I have yet to learn and figure out, like, oh, this is how this stuff works. And now I'm having fun learning the technical stuff about cameras, lighting, and all that film school stuff, because I didn't go to film school. I studied VR, but but I'm enjoying doing that now as well.
And speaking of Kung Fu, you've said in the past that you didn't see yourself represented on screen. Have you and the rest of the cast and crew had time to reflect on the impact that the show has had in making sure that future generations won't have to experience something similar?
It's a constant ebb and flow. We try not to self-aggrandize too much. I don't know if that's a correct word or not. We try not to be too self-important. At the same time, we take this responsibility with full seriousness, in terms of like, we know that it can mean a lot. It can mean a lot to people. It means a lot to us. And for us, even being able to do this and see ourselves in a way that we're playing roles that we haven't been able to before, showing Asian Americans, Chinese Americans on screen in Western television in a way that may seem rudimentary, or it may seem very normal and nothing special to some viewers who are used to seeing diverse talent. But like, even having a rich family dynamic, a rich sibling dynamic, like a love triangle featuring Asian Americans front and center and not off to the side, like that in and of itself, we can recognize is an achievement, because some people have never seen that before, and that, that we can appreciate that for sure. I think it's a constant thing of like, how do we not take on the burden of that responsibility so that we can actually do our jobs, not crumble under that responsibility, but also being able to take a step back and be like, hey, we've gotten some great feedback. We've heard from people who have said like, hey, this is amazing. My kids have something to see. I have something to see that I can look to and be like, wow, I feel seen in a way in the media. And, you and I know how much that means, and how that representation goes such a long way. And it's such a, in such a deep subconscious way, like seeing yourself as a main character, seeing yourself as maybe even, your own worst enemy. It means a lot, and we're so grateful that we get to do that.
There's so much authenticity that comes off the screen with this series. How much of that is written on the page for you? What's that collaboration like with the writer's room?
Yeah, the writer's room sends us these scripts usually about like at least a few days in advance before we shoot the episodes, and a lot of times I find myself reading it and I'm like, oh, okay, this is just me. So sometimes I feel like there's not a whole lot of acting involved. And I love being able to, read the pages a little bit beforehand and absorb it. And then when there are times where we see opportunities to inject more authenticity, or even bring more of ourselves to it, usually we have an on-set writer, or we'll have like a visiting writer, producer, supervising producer who's from the writer's room. They're in Vancouver with us, and we can bounce ideas off of them. We can clarify certain things, or add more, something that's more authentically Chinese, like just advancing what's already on the page. And they're super open to that process, and it's really cool to be able to even have the chance to be like, hey, can I do this here? Or like, hey, can we just change that little thing here with this piece of food or with this thing? And to be able to even have the opportunity to do that and take ownership of that, and step into our power that way, feels amazing.
Something else that I love about this show, especially in this first season, it tackles a lot of really timely and relevant topics. What has it meant to you to be a part of a production that's not afraid to have these kind of tough conversations?
It means everything. There are days where what we're doing, we realize it's entertainment. It's supposed to be fun. We lean into the adventure aspect of it, and it's great. And then there are other days where we do come across a very serious, a very heavy sort of issue that sometimes either we don't see it talked about enough, or we don't see it talked about involving people with faces like ours. And we see that there is a responsibility there, to, in some version, in some way, on some level, tell the truth. And it's interesting that some people may see it as, oh, I watched this as a distraction and I don't want this serious stuff. However, we know that there are a lot of people watching and who have gone through the things that these characters have gone through. And it's, you know, it's not just trying to be political. It's not just trying to be, you know, provocative or anything like that. It's like people go through these hard truths in our show, and there is a level of responsibility where we do need to talk about it. Are we going to solve everything? No, especially like we know when we had that entire episode dedicated around racism, race, identity, you know, injustice. You know, that's an everyday occurrence for a lot of people, and you know, that's to have the platform and to be able to just even just shed light on it. You know, we feel it feels right.
And we're approaching the end of season 1. What's ahead for Henry? What can you tease?
Oof. I will just say in a more broader scope, hard choices are going to have to be made. Some sacrifice along the way. The sense of danger hitting home is going to feel very real for our characters. Maybe in a figurative and a literal sense. The worry and the fear, like, are my loved ones safe from what I have to do, is going to be very present for sure. And the mysticism, the adventure, the hunt for the weapons, all that. In the last 2 episodes, we're turning it's got, we've turned it up. We're going all the way up.
With 11 episodes that have already aired, what's been your favorite scene to film, and what's been the most challenging? I like doing these interviews like towards the end of the season, because now you can talk a little bit more about those moments.
Oh man, that's a great question. I wish I had time to think about that, because there have definitely, because you know, we've enjoyed so many, and there have been scenes that have been really hard to shoot. Almost any fight scene answers both questions simultaneously. Every fight we do is like the most fun I have on set, but also because we're in such a time crunch, I think even I forget, working in TV, how fast the schedule is and how little time you have to do anything. So, you know, just in general, like if you ever watch anything on TV and you're like pleasantly entertained by it and you had a great time watching it, like that was a big achievement, you know, because sometimes you only get X amount of, only a few hours to pull off a certain shot or a certain sequence. The bar fight, we had a bar fight. It had to get cut due to time constraints in the episode that you saw that aired on TV, in that cut. But we spent all day shooting this whole thing, and I remember looking around. It was a circus that day. We had so many people, and you know, you have safety rules because of COVID. You have wires. You have bodies falling on tables. All kinds of kung fu happening. And I remember just stopping and looking around for a second, like, this is nuts, but I fucking love it. Like, I'm having the time of my life. I love any chance we get to have group scenes, especially for those of us who don't get to interact as much together. The gala. So episode 6 was the gala episode, and we get into shenanigans, for lack of a better word, but there's the Shen siblings, and there's Henry, and then they have to cause distraction from the parents so that they don't know that we're up to something very dangerous. And so we do the wine gag spill, and the kids we're all just kind of bouncing off each other. And that's one of my favorite scenes. That was one of my favorite scenes to shoot, because we had like everybody, you know, like we had everybody on set, you know, like I never get to see Gavin, and he was there. I'm usually with Olivia. Hence we joke that I'm her work husband, she's my work wife, because we're just there constantly together all the time. But then I get to act with like Shannon and JP and Ty and Kang, and you know, any chance we get to have everybody is extra special, because we spend a lot of time together offset, but like not all of us get to spend time together on the set.
Yeah, that's the perfect segue to this next question. But the series has already been picked up for a 2nd season. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Do you want to see Henry's storyline head? And is there somebody that you want to see Henry interact with more in season 2?
Yeah. They've laid out a really interesting base for Henry's character that's so ripe for storytelling. I would love to see them kind of go back in his past and see either people or maybe things that he might have done that could come back to haunt him. Because we know that Henry is connected to a few shady characters from back in the day, and I think there's a lot of room for bringing up some of those people from his past who could be either enemies or assets, because we were laying out some things ahead where, if he makes it out of the season, it's like we got some characters to explore. We got some relationships to explore. And I would love to see Henry interact with more villains. I want to see him fight with more villains. I want to see him interact with the main cast, because I don't get to see them, and we have a great rapport. We have a great chemistry. Like I said, Gavin, JP, Shannon, like I don't get to see them much, and I would love to see them share more of those scenes together.
Then we just like to end all of our interviews with a pop culture speed round. Do you have a guilty pleasure TV show?
I do. What am I? Oh God, last year during the pandemic, because I was too emotionally drained to handle anything like deep, and like I should have been watching Succession, but I watched Entourage from the beginning, and I tore through it. I couldn't. I was like, "This is my candy. Leave me alone. I'm depressed. I'm gonna watch this again." Yeah, I would say that one.
What about a guilty pleasure movie?
I don't know if it's really. You know what? There are no guilty pleasures. There are just pleasures. I've seen the Ocean's trilogy like so many times. It's actually they're like my favorite movies. And so when I could be watching something new and watching something on my long list of like, oh, you got to see this, I'm rewatching that because it just brings me comfort. So now I don't know if it's like guilty pleasure in the traditional sense, but like it makes me feel good, and so I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah, that gala definitely had Ocean's vibes to it too.
Yeah.
What about your favorite book?
I haven't read in a long time, but Siddhartha, I read that in high school or something like that, and it brought me a great sense of peace. I should probably reread that just for my own well-being.
What about a favorite play or musical?
Ooh. Favorite play or musical? It's a little dark, but I love The Pillow Man by Martin McDonagh. Three Billboards fame. A lot of people know him for that, but he's also an incredible playwright too.
What about a band or artist that fans would be surprised to learn is on your playlist?
I don't know if they would be surprised, but Harry Styles' Adore was my #1 song on Spotify in 2020.
Good one. What about your dream role?
Oh, good question. Jesus, I don't know if I have like a pointed answer. Do you mean like a role that already exists in canon?
Or something that like you can dream of?
I think, okay, great. Let's do some sort of hybrid of like something like action comedy, buddy cop, caper, sci-fi sort of thing. I just threw a bunch of genres at you. That wasn't even a real answer. But that's a cheeky way of just saying I want to do so many different kinds of things, and I want to work with so many different people and different kinds of styles. And thankfully I've been getting to explore some of that already with some of the stuff I've worked on, and also I would have a lot of fun in something like a Ted Lasso. I think something like that would like that sort of that type and that character. Like he uplifts those around him. And at the same time, he has his own demons to work out, and he has his own things that are bringing him down on the inside, and that he has to overcome. So something like that.